NFL Draft Day 2 is in the books, and some teams came away with absolute steals on Day 2. Day 3 is going to start here pretty soon as you're watching this video, I imagine. But let's talk about some of the best picks of yesterday as you watch this. And some of these players dropped for a number of reasons, whether it was character concerns, whether it was other teams liking different players better, whether it was injury concerns in the case of Nakobe Dean. We're going to talk about some of these guys, and some of them just fell because they fell. Like the quarterbacks had a huge fall, but I will be talking about some of them in this video because the value is immense if they end up reaching anywhere close to their full potential. And at some point, like Malik Willis 86, you just have to take a chance at that point and hope you end up with a great player. Let's get into it. And with the draft, it's also important to remember that, yeah, not all of these guys are going to end up being studs, even if it feels like a great pick at the time, but it's about the potential chance. And some of these guys definitely have a higher chance than others. And one of those guys is David Ojabo. Would have been a first-round pick if not for tearing his Achilles at his pro day. This is kind of like a draft and stash for the Ravens, who are not going to be able to play him right away, but in the case of freak athletes like David Ojabo, these guys rehab injuries faster than everybody else. And I mean, Jamison Williams, after tearing his ACL in the college football playoffs, is going to be back in no time for the Lions and maybe be back for the regular season. Ojabo could probably come back midway through this first half after Cam Akers rehabbed the injury in I want to say 8 months or less, something wild. So who knows when Ojabo is going to be ready to go. But what I do know is this guy can really, really play and it hasn't even really come close to realizing his full potential. The fact that the Ravens were able to get someone that would have been a first-round pick, they just draft so well. And there were so many Michigan connections. David Ojabo was high school teammates with Odafe Owe. It's just an unbelievable pick. This is the exact right team to go to. And he goes to them at pick 45. Unbelievable value in my opinion. This is just a great pick all around and someone with limitless potential off the edge. Crazy burst off the line of scrimmage, has flashed the ability to showcase some rush moves, has a nasty spin at times, but is still very much developing as a pass rusher. Not all the way there yet, but I have high hopes that Ojabo can end up being one of the better pass rushers in the league. A bit out of order here, we'll jump back to pick number 42, where the Vikings snagged Andrew Booth Jr., one pick ahead of the Giants, who I believe probably would have been targeting Booth with that pick. And man, he can really, really play. One of the better corners in this draft. Definitely in that top 5 conversation, yet he was not a top 5 corner off the board. You had Stingley, you had Sauce Gardner, you had Kyer Elam, you had Trent McDuffie going just before Elam. Just wanted to check Roger McCreary and Kyler Gordon, both going ahead of him. Yet he is probably better than all of them, at least in terms of upside. Incredible athlete with great ball skills. Booth is just dropping because of injury, really, and I think that's kind of it. He is a really, really good player who doesn't even have a ton of experience starting. So I feel that with the more time he plays corner in the league now, he's going to end up getting better and better and better. It's great value at 42 to find an outside boundary starting corner. This is a great pick by Minnesota. And George Pickens is somebody I absolutely had to talk about. There are maturity concerns with George Pickens, and I mean, he's gotten into plenty of fights on the field, and teams just don't love the character in general. That's why he fell to 52, as far as I've heard. Now, the thing with George Pickens on the field is he is an incredible player. I really, really liked him in this class. I thought he was one of the best receivers. I think at this point, and for many picks prior to this point, you are not going to find someone that can be a true X wide receiver 1 the way George Pickens profiles to be. He's got great route pacing. His play strength is pretty good. He's got excellent deep ball tracking. He's got fantastic hands. I think George Pickens really is the complete package at the position. I think he's a true X, as I said, and I think he can be a phenomenal player on this Steelers team. Whereas I don't know that Juju Smith-Schuster has nearly the potential that George Pickens does. And of course, you lose Schuster or Smith-Schuster to Kansas City in free agency. I don't think you can be that mad about that, filling his replacement with George Pickens. And yes, they're different players. Juju is kind of like the dirty work slot guy, whereas George Pickens, I think, is going to be a boundary receiver. But this really sets up your offense in a great position where you can play Chase Claypool as a big slot and move Deontay Johnson around and just keep George Pickens as that outside receiver. He's a really, really good player, and you pick Pickett in round 1, and now you pick Pickens in round 2. I thought he was tremendous value. Again, I can't speak really too much to the person, but the player, I think, is phenomenal. I think you may have even been able to hear in the background, the cat was pretty stoked about the George Pickens pick as well. And here we go with another receiver, just 2 picks later, Sky Moore. I didn't think there was any chance he was going to fall to 54, and he was a guy that realistically could have gone in the first round for Kansas City based on talent, and he was one of my favorite players in the entire draft. Love Sky Moore, and I love what he brings to the table. I think people are just going to label him a slot instantly without factoring in how advanced his release package is and how big his hands are and how quick he is off the line of scrimmage. He had one of the fastest 10-yard splits. I think, if not the fastest 10-yard split at the combine in the 40. So this guy is sudden. He's explosive. He was really, really good. And a player that, man, if you told me the Chiefs were going to get him at 54, I would have called you crazy. But this draft has been completely unpredictable so far in a lot of senses. Who knew that these quarterbacks were going to fall as far as they did in the case of Desmond Ridder and Matt Corral and Malik Willis? And we still haven't even seen Sam Howell go off the board as I record this. But Sky Moore falling to 54 is equally good value to a lot of these other guys that we've seen. And this is just a really awesome pick by Kansas City for a guy that realistically could have gone 20 picks earlier, maybe 30 picks earlier. Great value. And shock, the Ravens are back again. They made my best picks of day 1, even if Kyle Hamilton didn't make the cut for that video for me. They got it with Tyler Linderbaum, and then they got it earlier in this video with David Ojabo, and they come back and get Travis Jones at 76. Again, I didn't feel like there was any way he was going to fall to the 3rd round. I thought he was gone early. I mean, some people had him projected in the 1st round. I thought he was probably more in the 40 range where he could have gone to the Browns, and I think they would have been quite happy with that, or the Ravens. And I even thought the Bucs could have landed him at 33. But for Travis Jones to get to 76, yeah, the Ravens had to jump on this ASAP, and they did. They're just a team that drafts well, man. It is what it is. Like, the Ravens every single year will draft like one of the best teams in the league, and that's why these good teams stay good, is not only do they draft great prospects, but they can develop these prospects as well. And for Travis Jones coming in and being a rotational defensive lineman right away on this Ravens team, I think it's an exceptional value, and I think he's going to fit in really, really well. And you have Calais Campbell on that D-line for this year, and you have Justin Madubuike, and you have Derek Wolfe still, and then you bring in David Ojabo, who's going to come in at some point. You have Odafe Owe coming off the edge, and man, it's really tough to hate what the Ravens do in the draft any year. I really didn't like the Brandon Stevens pick last year, but it is really tough to disagree what they do here this year in round 3, and that's grabbing one of the best interior defensive linemen in the class, really top 4 for me. I think he was probably the 3rd best interior defensive lineman. And we still haven't seen my 4 go in Perry and Winfrey. Travis Jones, great player, but these defensive tackles really aren't going off the board too quickly. Jones is great, and he's going to a really great spot as well. It's tough to hate anytime the Ravens bring in a defensive player because you can just see them fitting into the scheme so well, like Kyle Hamilton at strong safety. I think he's going to literally the best team for his development and role, and he's going to end up being a pretty good player. But getting Travis Jones, getting David Ojabo, man, yeah, the Ravens are killing it, as they always seem to be. Colts snagged Bernhard Raimann. I wish these were all wide so it didn't look disgusting on camera, but yeah, it kind of is what it is. And we're just talking about the guys. Hopefully you're enjoying the analysis to some degree. Colts grabbed Bernhard Raimann at 77, another guy that was projected by some to sneak into the 1st round. I thought he was probably going to go first half of the 2nd round, and that's at like pick 39, maybe as low as 50, but here he is falling to 77. And yes, he is also an older player. For the same reason I knocked Velus Jones in my bad picks video, I'm not going to be knocking Bernhard Raimann because he's an offensive tackle. It's very different on the offensive line where you don't need to be this freak athlete the way you do sometimes at receiver. But Raimann, he's technically pretty good for a player that's still learning the position. He's from Austria, foreign exchange student, transitioning from tight end, and is already a pretty good offensive tackle. I think he can probably stick at left tackle, and he's going to have to for the Colts. This is someone that can be a starting left tackle for them within a year or two. Maybe they'll even try it right away, depending on what happens in camp and preseason and those things. But Raimann is definitely amazing value at 77. Again, a guy that could have gone a lot earlier, and the Colts really needed to find a way to fill that left tackle void. After Anthony Costanzo left, they tried Eric Fisher. He was kind of up and down, great at run blocking, awful at pass blocking at sometimes. And Ryman, he's definitely going to end up being pretty good for them, I think. I would bet on his upside. Eagles at pick number 83 took Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia. Man, let's get it out of the way. There are some significant, real injury concerns with Nakobe Dean. It's the ankle, it's the knee, it's the shoulder. It's some teams believing he has a torn pec, and he won't get surgery. He wanted to do physical therapy instead. And those are real concerns because this is a guy that gets banged up a lot and is injured actively. That's why he falls to 83, and he's already undersized as it is. Has extremely short arms, and you can kind of tell in the picture, really, that he has short arms, and that's a real concern for a linebacker. He's going to have to sift through blocks and make a play on the ball carrier. And we've seen the tape, right? Nakobe Dean is a great player. Some things you do have to point out is he's playing behind one of the best defensive lines we've ever seen in college football history, and he played clean a lot of the time. He wasn't really in a position where he had to play run fits and take on offensive linemen. You had guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Devontae Wyatt eating blocks or making plays and causing disruption, and Nakobe Dean could really play clean a lot of the time. So there are some real concerns with him, but man, he's so instinctive. He flies around the field making plays. Nakobe Dean is super, super fun, and if the injury stuff checks out, this is an absolute steal for the Eagles. They've never really invested high in a linebacker under Howie Roseman, and they continue to not do that, and it could be a home run pick here with Nakobe Dean at 83. Incredible value. It's just are significant concerns with both injury and physical profile, but man, is the player really, really good. The Titans snagged Malik Willis at number 86. At this point, it doesn't matter if Malik Willis is a bust, and you can't even really label him that. He's the 86th pick in the draft. At this point, he was just way too good to not take a chance on. And man, there's so much to love with Malik Willis. Not even just the mental makeup, how everyone rants and raves about how great of a person he is and how great of a mind he is and how he understands these football concepts, even if we haven't necessarily seen the pre and post snap processing. Playing at Liberty under Hugh Freeze, the offense was a bit of a mess. He had multiple offensive play callers, as crazy as that sounds. So it was a lot of stuff going on at Liberty, and I think he was able to process it fairly well. He was also playing behind maybe the worst offensive line I've ever seen. I mean, Liberty's O-line was horrific, and that's where he really got a great chance to see Malik Willis as an extender, and he plays pretty well out of the construct of the play as he was forced to. He's got a huge arm. He's electric as a runner. He's not quite Lamar Jackson. He's not as fast or as explosive, but he's bigger. He's stronger, and he can break these tackles in different ways. And as a passer, he's got a huge arm, one of the best arms in the class, great deep ball at times. It's just about developing consistency and cleaning up some of the easy mistakes that you see on film. And I'm not sure how correctable some of these are because at the end of the day, it's him that has to make these better reads and understand, yeah, with the safety rotating over, you can't throw the go route to receiver when the safety's rotating right to it. And it looks open, it's not open. He's got to be able to see these things pre-snap. And I think with more experience, that's going to happen. Playing at Liberty, smaller program, it could be quite an adjustment to the NFL. But he goes into a situation where he's not forced to start right away. He's going to sit behind Ryan Tannehill, learn the offense, and learn where the ball needs to go before the play and really learn the playbook. And that's not always just, okay, dead set, number one read, but that's a lot of the way offense works, guys, is going through progressions, and certain times if one's open, you throw to one. You got to know where one is, and in the Liberty offense, so many receivers were on top of each other. It was so many curls and comebacks, and I just don't think it was conducive to see what Malik Willis is really capable of. And when you talk about the athlete and the person, the value at 86 is nearly immeasurable. He is such a high potential, high ceiling player that you had to take a shot. And it's amazing that he fell to number 86 overall. I also wanted to talk about another quarterback, Matt Corral, and keep in mind Desmond Ridder might be the best of the bunch. He went a little bit earlier to the Falcons, but I thought these were even bigger steals based on where Ridder went, and Ridder was great value as well. So you might not get a whole speech about Ridder or a graphic about Desmond Ridder, but Ridder was a really good pick and I think has real potential to be a big steal in this draft. So I am mentioning Desmond Ridder, but I want to talk about Corral briefly as well. the fact that he's available at 94, this could end up being your starting quarterback. He's got big time potential. Really wasn't able to see what he is really capable of playing in the Ole Miss offense under Lane Kiffin as well. It was a lot of RPOs, a lot of quick hitters, and Corral at times is quite inconsistent, but also at times he's got a tremendous deep ball. I think he can go through progressions at a decent level despite being in a quick hitter offense. At the times where there were some longer progressing routes and concepts, I thought he was able to go through progressions at a fairly high level. We just don't really know how he reads the field. And for me, Matt Corral was also one of the most elusive quarterbacks in the draft in terms of being able to run with the football. His play style is a little bit crazy at times, and I think injuries are also a big concern with him, especially for an undersized QB. But Corral's got big-time potential. There's no pressure on him at all going at number 94 overall. You have guys like Willie McGinnis saying the Steelers would have to move up from 20 if they wanted a chance at Corral because he'd be gone. I thought that was absolutely insane. However, I didn't think there was any chance he was going to fall to 94. And the Panthers, man, you might have a starting quarterback over Sam Darnold at some point during year one. I think that's a little bit unlikely, but I do think Sam Darnold is bad enough to where this is a real possibility at some point if things get bad enough. But Corral at some point in his career, I think, will get some starts and be a starting QB. So whether that comes with the Panthers in his rookie contract or somewhere else down the line, we'll have to see. But Corral's got big-time potential, and I'm excited to see what he can do in this offense given the opportunity. And the last one we'll talk about here is Leo Chenal, linebacker out of Wisconsin. I don't know how he fell to 103. I thought he was one of the better linebackers in the draft, especially as a blitzing linebacker. I thought he was going to be more highly valued by teams, even at linebacker, which is an undervalued position in general. Chenal offers something that a lot of other linebackers don't. First of all, he's an exceptional athlete, one of the best linebackers athletically that we've seen in the draft in quite some time. And there are a few of those guys in this class like this, unbelievably, but he is an unbelievable athlete. He's got tremendous size, playing at 6'2", 6'3", 250 to 260 pounds, still being fast, still being explosive, and bendy at times as a blitzer. Even though he's been tremendous as an inside rush linebacker, I also think that he can do that as an outside linebacker. I think he profiles quite well as a Sam linebacker in the NFL. And the Chiefs just continue to get great pick after great pick after great pick. They got steal after steal in last year's draft, and it worked out really well for them with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. And now they got Trent McDuffie at 21 and Sky Moore at 54 and Leo Chenal at 103. I thought each pick seemed almost better than the last for the Chiefs, and they kept hitting and hitting and hitting. And we'll have to see how these players work out in the NFL, by the way. There's no guaranteed hit rate for any single player in the league. But I think Chenal is going to be a good player, and he's at least going to be a rotational, blitz-heavy linebacker out of the gate. But I think that profiles really, really well with the rest of the Chiefs linebacking core. When you look at Willie Gay and Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal offers them something that they just don't have. And Chenal is a rare breed of linebacker, and I think a really, really good pick by the Chiefs, who, as I say, continue to do well. But that's going to do it. A lot of other great picks that I can't mention in this video, but I might be talking about when I break down every team's draft later on down the line after the entire draft is over here in a day or so. But stay on the lookout for that video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.
Back to the house, defensive joke, I'm laughing so loud.